Yeah, go ahead.
Good evening, Congressman Frank, and I want to thank you so much for coming to visit your constituents in Massachusetts tonight. And I want to applaud everyone here that did show up. It's a hot, steamy night in August here, and I know all you folks would rather be home with your loved ones, so thank you for showing up. Congressman Frank, do you feel that the population in this room might be representative of your constituent base? Because to me, I have
no way of knowing.
I hear they don't want the health care reform as it is written currently. And my question to you is very simple. If your constituents are overwhelmingly opposed to it the way it is now, is there any way you would go against the Obama administration and your own party and reject it?
There were 650,000 people who live in this district. No one has any way of knowing, nor is it relevant, whether this particular group is representative or not, because that's not how you make decisions based on a few people who come out on a hot night. So that the answer is no one knows. Secondly, will I sometimes oppose my constituents? Yeah, I think a majority of the people I represented were for the Patriot Act. In 2001, after that terrible mass murder of so many Americans, the Patriot Act looked like it was very popular. I thought it was a mistake. I thought it did not fully respect our tradition of liberty, and I thought there were ways we could protect ourselves without that. So I voted against it. I think it was unpopular at the time. The war in Iraq, I think, because people believed in a majority, incorrectly it turned out, that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, I think that might have been popular. I voted against it. I will vote based on what I think is the best public policy. There are a lot of people who are for it, a lot of people who are against it. At this point, by the way, I don't know how anybody can have an absolutely firm opinion, because there are some important choices still to be made. I would like to cut back on the extent to which we raise health care money for this bill by taxation of employers and increase it by finding funds elsewhere. But that's the answer to your question.
Hello, my name is Barney with the Bush hat. 2 years ago, I came to you in the Congress at the cafeteria. You freaked out. They freaked out. Because I introduced you to the Homeowners and Bank Protection Act, which was the only solution to the economic crisis we face in this nation. You went with the bailouts. You said, no, we got to save Wall Street.
Can you cover me?
Oh, yeah. You went with that. That's what you went with. And Goldman Sachs and all the other banking apparatus has got billions of dollars of U.S. taxpayer money. Instead of doing what was necessary for this country, number one, bankruptcy reorganization, put the Federal Reserve into bankruptcy. Shut it down. We're in the process of building a Hamiltonian system that this nation was founded on. A national banking system. You got to get rid of the worthless debt. You got to get rid of the worthless debt. You got to get rid of all the worthless derivatives and other debt that has no valid, nothing is not, has no valid validity to U.S. taxpayers. We're going to put the whole system, chartered banks, to bankruptcy organization. If you do not do that, you screw the nation.
I did guess it is true when the Secretary of Treasury and the Chairman of the Federal Reserve came to us last September in the Bush administration. It said if we don't lend money to the banks, we're going to have a terrible crisis. I felt we had no choice. We did not do it the way they wanted us to. We put some restrictions on it. Some of those were paid off. By the way, many of those banks have now paid back that money with interest. We haven't lost the whole $700 billion. We've gotten back from several of those banks. In fact, of the first $200 billion that was lent in less than a year, $75 billion has been returned, and I believe we will get more. Secondly, we insisted on compensation restrictions. We tried to force them to do foreclosure relief. I disagreed with the Secretary of Treasury on that. As to bankruptcy, I did favor, and the House did pass, a bill to allow people to declare bankruptcy with regard to their primary residence. They're not now allowed to do that by a law that goes back to the 70s. Unfortunately, that died in the Senate, so we weren't able to get that. I am disappointed with the banks on foreclosure. I do have one proposal now. As some of the money that is being repaid from the bank rescue plan, the TARP plan, comes back, as they have paid back interest and dividends where we've made a profit from some of them, I want to make that available as a loan to people who had good mortgages, not subprime mortgages, but good mortgages, but have lost their jobs. We have a new wave of foreclosures from people who were very responsible and they got their mortgage. They didn't get some mortgage they couldn't afford, but you can't pay a mortgage out of unemployment compensation if that's your primary source of income. We could lend them the money and get it repaid, do them some good, but also avoid more foreclosures. I'll be fighting for that when we get back.
You'll be scared in October. You'll be very scared.
Can I just say something? If anybody has a political stance and not a question, the microphone will be cut off. We want to get questions so everybody can be heard.
And I do want to respond because the gentleman identified it from the LaRouche organization. They're the ones giving out the picture of the president with the Hitler mustache. I do want to make clear how contemptible I think that is. And it is I think it's an example of the strength of the First Amendment. They have a perfect right to be utterly contemptible.
Okay, hi, Mr. Frank, thank you for coming. I just wanted to mention something that I've noticed a few blogs are talking about on the internet, that these banks all across the country are overvaluing their assets, their mortgages that they hold on their books. And I've actually been to a few foreclosure auctions, and I've noticed that banks are buying back houses for themselves in order to have it, to prevent themselves from having to mark down the value of these assets. And they're basically lying to us about their solvency. And this is all made possible by the Federal Reserve lending money to these institutions. And I just want to ask you, when will you put H.R. 1207, the bill to audit the Fed, up for a vote in the committee? Thank you very much.
I disagree that the Fed is the cause of this, but yes, I have been pushing for more openness in the Fed back when the Democrats were in power and Henry Gonzalez, and we did get some of it. Here's what we plan to do. I want to restrict the powers of the Federal Reserve in a number of ways. First of all, they will be the major losers of power if we are successful, as I believe we will be, in setting up that Financial Product Protection Commission. The Federal Reserve is now charged with protecting consumers. They were supposed to do subprime mortgage restrictions. Congress in 1994 gave the Federal Reserve the power to adopt rules to ban bad subprime mortgages. Alan Greenspan refused to do it. He said that was too much market intervention. They had the power to ban credit card abuses. They have the power to deal with overdraft. They, under Greenspan, did nothing. Under Bernanke, they started to do things, but only after Congress started. When I became chairman of the committee, we began to act on these things. Subprime mortgages, credit cards, overdraft. In every case, after we started, the Fed did it. So that's one of the reasons why in the new Consumer Protection Agency, we will take away from the Federal Reserve the power to do consumer protection. Secondly, they have had since 1932 a right, under Herbert Hoover and the Democratic Congress combined, the right that they hadn't used until recently to intervene in the economy almost whenever they thought. Last September, the Federal Reserve came to us and said that they were going to advance $82 billion to AIG. I was kind of surprised and said, you have $82 billion. Mr. Bernanke said, I have $800 billion. Under Section 13.3 of the Federal Reserve Act, they can lend money to anybody they want. We are going to curtail that lending power. We are going to put some restraints on it. Finally, we will subject them to complete audit. I've been working with Ron Paul, who's the main sponsor of that bill. He agrees that we don't want to have the audit appear as if it is influencing monetary policy, because that would be inflationary, and Ron and I agree on that. We also say one of the things the audit will show you is what the Federal Reserve buys and sells. And that will be made public, but not instantly. Because if that was made instantly, you would have a lot of people trading off of that, and it would have too much impact on the market. Again, Ron agrees with that. So we will probably have that data released after a time period of several months, enough time so it wouldn't be market sensitive. That'll be part of the overall federal regulation that we are adopting.